Hi guys, we're going to continue reading Dealing with Dragons. We're on to chapter 12, in which Cimorene calls on a dragon, and the Stone Prince discovers a plot. The shortcut to Roxham's worked just as well as Cimorene had hoped. She even made up some of the time that she had lost earlier. Roxham was in, too. She could hear the scraping of his scales as he moved around inside. She stepped up to the entrance of the cave and called, "Dragon Roxham!" Something round and shiny flew through the air. Missing Cimorene by inches, it hit the wall of the tunnel with a loud clang and slid, rattling to the floor. Cimorene jumped. "Roxham!" she shouted at the top of her lungs. "What's this?" the dragon said, poking his nose out the entrance of the cave. "I'm Cimorene, princess to Dragon Kazul, and I offer you greetings and good fortune in all your endeavors." Cimorene thought it would be best to be particularly polite, in case Roxham was in a bad mood. She suspected he might be. In her experience, someone in a good mood did not throw things at visitors. "Very good," Roxham said. "Nice to see you again, and all that. But I haven't got time for visitors at the moment. I'm sorry." "I'm not a visitor, exactly. Kazul sent me with a message for you." "Oh, well that's different. Just hand me that shield there, would you?" Cimorene picked up the shield from the floor of the tunnel. There was a large dent in one side where it had hit the tunnel wall, and several smaller ones over the rest from banging it against things on its way to the tunnel floor. "You ought to be more careful with this," she said severely. "Just look at it." "Ha!" Roxham snorted, examining the dents. Shoddy work, that's the problem. In my day you could roll a knight in full armor down the side of the Vanishing Mountain and bounce him off one or two cliffs, without so much as scratching the surface, much less denting it. This cheap modern stuff just doesn't hold up." "If you know it doesn't hold up, you shouldn't throw it like that," Cimorene said. "You almost hit me." Roxham shifted uncomfortably. "Sorry, didn't mean anything by it." "All right, but next time look before you throw things." She handed him the shield. "I've always had a problem when I try and find something. I always have this problem when I try and find something," Roxham confided. "I never know where to look. It gets frustrating, and next thing you know I'm pitching armor at the walls. Bad habit, but it's hard to break." "Maybe I could help," Cimorene suggested. "After I give you Kazul's message, that is." "Don't need help to put dents in things," Roxham said. "Comes to that, I don't really want it." "I didn't mean help throwing things," Cimorene said patiently. "I meant help finding whatever you're looking for." "Oh, that. Well, come in then." Cimorene followed the dragon into a moderately larger cave, similar to the one Kazul used as a living area. Roxham's cave, however, was full of clutter. Cimorene had to pick her way past bits of armor, one half of a pair of bookends, a box of tea, a pink scroll, 3 mismatched kitchen pots, a small wooden statue, a broken flute, 4 partially burned candles. Roxham walked straight over the mess as if it wasn't there, squashing a mangy-looking stuffed pigeon and flattening a tin cup in passing. He dropped the shield on a pile of silk flowers and waved Cimorene to a seat on the large wooden chest next to the wall. "Now what's that message of Kazul's?" "It's about the wizards," Cimorene said, settling gingerly onto the dusty surface of the chest. She made a mental note to find Roxham a nice princess as soon as she could. "Alienor and I found one of them picking Dragonsbane a few days ago. Kazul thinks that King Tokaz will listen to you if you tell him about it." "So that's where they got it," Roxham said in tones of disgust. "Pity you didn't mention it sooner." Cimorene got a sinking feeling. "What do you mean?" "Somebody poisoned King Tokaz this morning," Roxham explained. "Slipped some Dragonsbane in his coffee. Fast acting. Nothing to be done. Now we need a new king." "That's awful," Cimorene said. "Do you know who did it?" "Those dratted wizards, that's who," Roxham said angrily. "It's obvious. Stupid thing to do. Has to be wizards. By George! But Warag won't listen to me." "Warag? What's Warag got to do with it?" "He's in charge of the investigation," Roxham replied. "He's taking his time about it, too, if you ask me." "But if the king was only poisoned this morning, what does that have to do with it?" Roxham said unreasonably. "Besides, if Warag doesn't hurry, he won't have the culprit in hand by the time the trial starts tomorrow." "Trial? You mean with Colin Stone to choose a new king?" Cimorene said with some hesitation. She did not know how it could be a trial for the person who had She did not see how it could be a trial for the person who had killed the king if they hadn't caught him yet, but she was not completely certain that dragons didn't have some way of getting around the problem and trying him anyways. "That's it," Roxham said, pleased. And before I leave, I have to find the emerald that I picked up 50 years ago. Coronation present for the new king. But you haven't got a new king yet, Cimorene said, feeling somewhat bewildered. And what if you're the new king? Roxham smiled broadly. Knew you were a nice gal. Me, the king. I rather like that idea. I'd still have to find the emerald, though. Wouldn't show up to the trials without a coronation present. Rum thing to do. Overconfident. Though she was upset and more than a little worried, Cimorene helped Roxham as best she could, and after an hour of poking through the clutter, Cimorene found the emerald wrapped in gold-embroidered handkerchief and stuffed into the mouth of a large brass horn. Roxham thanked her and invited her to stay to tea, but Cimorene politely declined. She was eager to get home to Kazul and tell her what had happened and decide what to do next. Cimorene hurried back to Kazul's cave by the shortest route, thinking so hard about Tokaz's death that she forgot everything else. She found Kazul sleeping and forced her to wake up, despite her worries about the dragon's health. She knew Kazul would want to hear what the King of Dragons about the King of Dragons as soon as possible, and she wanted to hear what Kazul made of Warag's involvement in the investigation. Back already? Kazul said, opening her eyes. Didn't Roxham get you in to see King Tokaz? No, Cimorene said. She hesitated, uncertain of the best way to break the news. It was too late. Too late? Kazul rose her head, startled, and she eyed Cimorene briefly. All right, let's have it. What happened? King Tokaz was poisoned this morning. Roxham said someone put dragon's bane in his coffee. Kazul snorted. Somebody knew Tokaz pretty well. Seeing Cimorene's surprised expression, she explained. King Tokaz drank Turkish coffee every morning, stuffed so strong you have to take the roof stuffed so strong it'll take the roof of your mouth off. That's why no one ever went to talk to him over breakfast. You could boil a whole field's worth of dragon's bane in Turkish coffee without changing the taste enough to notice, or the texture. Cimorene tried to imagine coffee, even Turkish coffee, so strong that it could take the roof off of a dragon's mouth, and failed. I told Roxham about the wizard Alienor and I met, and Roxham said I ought to tell Warog, because Warog's in charge of finding the poisoner. She said, but when you caught Anthrel picking dragon's bane, he thought Warag had sent you, Kazul said. If Warag's mixed up with those wizards, she broke off, coughing. Cimorene watched her anxiously, but the coughing spasm did not last long. I don't like this, Kazul finished when she got her breath back. I don't either, Cimorene agreed, but what can we do about it? Kazul frowned and said nothing. For several minutes the two sat in silence, and then Kazul said, We can't do anything until the new king has been chosen. Did Roxham say when the testing will be? Tomorrow, Cimorene said. Tomorrow? Kazul surged to her feet. Why didn't you say so? If I'm to be at the Ford of Whispering Snakes tomorrow, I have to— Lie down, Cimorene commanded. Kazul looked at her in surprise, and collapsed into another fit of coughing. Cimorene waited until the coughing had subsided, and then said sternly, You're in no condition to be hauling rocks all over the countryside. I'd be surprised if you could even fly as far as the end of the pass. I think that you're going to have to give up the trials this time around. Kazul made a choking noise, and Cimorene looked at her in alarm, and then realized the dragon was laughing. It's not optional, Princess, Kazul said. All the adult dragons in the Mountains of Mourning are required to show up, no matter what condition they're in. But there is no acceptable excuse for missing the testing of a new king, Kazul repeated. None. I have a great deal to do before I leave, so if anything around here needs to be done, I'll do it, Cimorene said. If you don't rest, you won't be able to fly at all, and then how will you get to the ford? A reasonable point, Kazul said, settling reluctantly back into place. Very well, the first thing I need is a coronation present for the new king. There's a jeweled helmet on the shelf in the second storeroom that might do. Bring it out so I can have a look at it. Cimorene spent the rest of the evening running errands for Kazul. Besides choosing a coronation gift, Kazul rejected the helmet and 2 crowns before deciding on a scepter made of gold and crystal. Innumerable messages had to be delivered to various dragons who were in charge of arranging the trials. This one had to be informed of Kazul's ill health, so that it could be taken into account when the order of testing was established. That one had to be told that Kazul could not join in the coronation procession. Substitutes had to be found to perform Kazul's various ceremonial duties. Then their names had to be approved by a surly dragon in charge of protocol. And finally, the substitutions had to be recorded on the list of dragons who were managing each of the events. It reminded Cimorene strongly of Linderwall and her parents' court. By the time the last arrangement had been made and the last message had been delivered, it was very late, and Cimorene was exhausted. She was also very glad she had not let Gazul do all the running around. The dragon, who had slept most of the time that Cimorene was out, was looking much better, even in the dim light of Cimorene's lamp. Tired but satisfied, Cimorene went to her room and dropped into bed. It was early the next morning. Cimorene was early. Let's try that again. Cimorene was up early the next morning, stirring a dozen ostrich eggs into a large kettle iron for Gazul's breakfast. Gazul ate all of them and then slid out of the cave, preparing to leave for the ford of Whispering Snakes. "Don't fret, Princess," Gazul said. "The testing doesn't start until 10. I have plenty of time to get there, even if I stop to rest now and then." Her voice sounded much better than it had the day before, and it no longer seemed to rasp her throat. "While I'm gone, why don't you visit Warag's, Princess? See if she's noticed anything odd these past few days. We need to know as much as we can before we talk to the new king about Warag and the wizards." "All right," Cimorene said, "as soon as I'm done with the dishes." Gazul turned to leap into the air, her wings churning clouds of dust from the dry surface of the ground. Cimorene squinted after her and shouted, "Good luck!" Gazul's wings dipped in answer before the dragon soared out behind the shoulder of the next mountain. Cimorene stood looking after Gazul, her forehead wrinkling in worry, and after a moment she shook herself and went inside. She had work to do. Washing the dishes did not take long, and as soon as she was done, Cimorene set off to visit Alienora. The tunnels and passageways were silent and empty, and Cimorene's footsteps echoed eerily through the darkness. She began to wish that she had taken a longer route along the Mountains of Mourning. She had not realized that the Dragon City would seem so strange and lifeless with all the dragons gone. "Psst! Cimorene!" Cimorene jumped. She whirled around in the direction of the voice, raising her lamp like a club, and Alienora stepped out of the adjoining tunnel into a circle of light. In one hand she clutched a large bucket, 3/4 full of soapy water, and looked rather pale. "Alienora!" Cimorene said, lowering her arm. "What are you doing out here?" "Shh!" Alienora said, looking nervously over her shoulder. "Warog told me to scrub off the table of the banquet room when everyone was away, and I heard someone moving around in there, even though everyone is gone but us. I dropped my lamp and—" "Oh, goodness!" Cimorene said. "The Stone Prince! I'd forgotten all about him." "Who?" "The Stone Prince." Quickly Cimorene explained how she had found and hidden him away the day before. "I hadn't thought about it until today, but this is the perfect time to get him out of the mountains," she finished. "All the dragons are gone and no one will see him. Come on, before I forget again." Alienora nodded dubiously, and the two girls headed for the banquet room. When they arrived, Cimorene went in first, holding her lamp high. "Prince," she called. "Are you there? It's me, Cimorene." "Yes, I'm here," the Stone Prince said, unfolding stiffly from a gray lump in the corner. "I'm glad you're back. And who's this you brought with you?" "Princess Alienora of Duchy on Marsh," Cimorene said. "She's the princess of the Dragon Warog now." "Does her father need any great service done for him?" the prince asked hopefully. "Not that I know of," Cimorene said, "unless you're good at getting rid of aunts, in which case that would be helpful, but more of a service to Alienora than her father." "I can't think of nothing that would make me happier," the prince said with evident admiration as he bowed stiffly to Alienora. "Good afternoon, Princess. Or should it be good evening? It's hard to tell without windows." Alienora blushed and looked down at her bucket without answering. "Actually, it's good morning," Cimorene told the prince. "I'm sorry it took me so long to come back to you, but, well, a lot has been going on." Alienora looked up sharply. "You've been sitting here in the dark all night?" She shuddered. "You could have at least left him a candle, Cimorene." "Thank you for the thought, Princess Alienora, but it's just as well she didn't," the Stone Prince said. "If I'd been sitting here lit with a candle, they'd have noticed me right away, and an unlit candle isn't much use in the dark, is it?" "What do you mean?" Cimorene said. "Who would have noticed you?" "The dragon and the two men he was talking to," replied the prince. "I think they were wizards." "What?" Cimorene and Alienora said together. "Well, they talked as if they were wizards," the prince said. "They weren't carrying staffs, though." "What did they look like?" Cimorene said. "They were both tall, and they had beards. The older one's was gray, and the younger one's was brown." "Antrel and Zeminar," Cimorene said. "And they were talking to a dragon?" The Stone Prince nodded. Then they wouldn't have been carrying their staffs. Dragons are allergic to them. Did you hear what they said?" Something about a contest, the Stone Prince said. The wizards were going to fix it so this dragon would win. It sounded like a cross-country race, and the wizards were going to hide along the path and help the dragon out somehow. I'm afraid I'm not very clear on that part. Spells aren't my specialty, and I'm much better at hopeless cause. Sorry. Spells aren't my specialty. I'm much better at a hopeless cause. Alienora and Cimorene exchanged appalled glances. The trials would call in Stone to pick the new king, Alienora said. Which dragon? Cimorene asked urgently. Do you know which dragon they were talking to? I only heard his name once, the prince said, and he sounded apologetic and a little embarrassed. I don't think I got it right. It's too silly. Tell us, Cimorene commanded. Well, it sounded like warthog, the prince said, in an even more apologetic and embarrassed tone than before. Could it have been warog? Cimorene asked. That's it, the prince said. I knew it couldn't have really been warthog. What a pity you remembered, a voice said from the entrance to the banquet hall. Cimorene whirled, and Antrel was standing in the doorway, staff in hand, watching them with an intolerably smug expression. And that is the end of chapter 12. Next time, we'll read chapter 13, in which Alienora discovers an unexpected use for soap and water, and Cimorene has difficulty with a dragon. I hope you guys are excited to see what happens next. I can't wait to read it to you. Until then, I hope you stay happy and safe. I'll see you later. Oh, no, I won't. Oh, it's been so long since I've actually talked to people. Ugh. I will see you next time, I guess, through the computer when I read a story. Until then, have fun. Again, stay safe, and goodbye.